Welcome to the Work, Wealth, and Travel podcast. I'm your host, Nicole, and this podcast is your guide to start creating a lifestyle by design. From entrepreneurship, money and finance, taxes and residencies, and everything in between, this show highlights the nuances of a true global citizen lifestyle. Let's dive in. Welcome back to the Work, Wealth, and Travel podcast. And today I am very much so looking forward to diving into all things finance and freedom with Justin Buonomo. So Justin, before we dive in, let's hear a little bit about your story, your background, where you started, and how you got to where you are today.
Well, thank you for having me, Nicole. I'm super excited to be here. As I was learning more about your podcast and getting to know about this opportunity, I'm just so grateful that there's a podcast like this out there for people that blends so many different things, but so many massively related things, especially if you do it the right way. And so I love the idea of just being able to travel and do what you want and live the life that you want to live, because a big part of my story has to do with that. And I'm originally from New York. I grew up with parents that made a lot of money, didn't see a lot of money, right? Made a lot of money, followed for multiple bankruptcies throughout my childhood. And, at age 10 was a big reason why we lost it all. I think it was the first or second bankruptcy where we ended up basically losing our house, both cars. They got a divorce for many other reasons, but that definitely had a lot to do with that. And even when we went to go move into rental properties because they couldn't purchase new homes because of the bankruptcy, there was no pets allowed. And I had a 3-year-old Rottweiler at the time. And I literally had to give away my dog at age 10 because of what seemed to be issues with money. And so since then, I kind of made a promise to myself that one day when I could help people with money, right, I would really take the opportunity to do that. And so my journey with money started then, but directly when I turned 18, I was given a settlement for $80,000 for getting hit by a car when I turned 13, and nobody could tell me what to do with that money. That was my money. It wasn't my parents. It wasn't my lawyers. It was literally as soon as you turn 18, you're getting this money in your bank account, and go ahead, do what you want to do with it. No guidance whatsoever. And all I did was just mirror what I saw growing up. And though my parents are great people and they did a lot of awesome things for us, teaching us how to manage money was not one of them. If anything, they taught us the exact opposite. And so just to keep it simple, to say I blew that money would be a massive compliment. All right. So let's just fast forward 20 years old. I'm out of that money and really learned some serious lessons, good and bad, in life. And then 23 years old, then I'm getting a really big time job at Johns Hopkins where they're paying me this nice salary. And right then and there, I was like, okay, I need to figure out how to manage money because I'm only going to make more money as I climb what I thought was going to be the corporate ladder, which transitioned into working for myself, but we'll get there. And just made a decision right then and there to learn how to manage money better. It was not an easy route, but at 23 years old, decided to implement some budgeting systems, some saving systems, some investing systems, and really started to get some good results. Fast forward to me being 26, right? My wife and I, we were doing well enough from our jobs and from all of these budgeting and financial tactics that we were utilizing that we were able to take a week-long vacation in Hawaii, and we ended up staying on the North Shore at this Airbnb that was secluded. It was this private beach, right? And so travel, we were always big on traveling as soon as we met, because growing up, we never traveled because of our parents' financial situation. So we made a commitment when we first met, especially when we started doing really well, that we were going to, after we saved and invested what we needed to save and invest, we were going to spend the rest of our money on taking a vacation a month. And one of them happened to be Hawaii. And I go and I do take a swim. I think it's like 9 o'clock in the morning on a random Tuesday. And this is about 5 years ago. And I come out of the ocean, no towel, no nothing. And something just told me to lay down in the sand and look up at the sky and just dream a little bit. And what hit me was, I need to live this life for the rest of my life. Just like your podcast teaches, like, how could you set up your life so you can travel how you want, be where you want, still work, still make an impact, still support a family? And I was like, screw that 9-to-5 thing. I was like, I'm very grateful for it. I was very grateful for the opportunities and the money that I was making in that, especially at a young age. But I was like, this shit's for the birds. So I laid there. I was like, okay, I need to retire. I need to figure out how to travel and do whatever I can and be free. And so I called my financial advisor, literally went inside on a Hawaii vacation, called my financial advisor and was like, when can I retire? And he ran some numbers and he was like 56 and I'm 26, 27 at the time. And I'm like, yeah, no, not doing that. And so right then and there, I decided like, how would I actually provide myself financial freedom? And I'll wrap it up here, but really kind of a definition of financial freedom we teach our clients is you own an asset or assets that make you enough money each month automatically, right? Whether you choose to show up or not, and that money is enough to cover your expenses and your lifestyle, right? And at first, you do have to show up. At first, the intermediate vehicle may be better than your original situation, meaning you leave the day job to start your own thing and you're working heavily on that own thing. But because you're making your own schedule, right? And making money, hopefully, with that own thing, you're able to build the luxuries of traveling and being where you want to be and doing all of those awesome things. But eventually, you only want to show up in that business the way that you want to show up in that business. And whether you show up or not, have that asset or that business spin you enough money each month automatically to cover your expenses and your lifestyle. And so I think I just condensed about 11 years into, I don't know, what was that, 5 minutes? I just talked at you. I just wanted to give you a little lay of the land of like where I started with money, travel, entrepreneurship, dream, lifestyle, all of that, and kind of where I'm at now. And I'll be 32 here in a couple of weeks and think we've been financially free since we were about 28 years old, my wife and I. And we travel an absolute ton. That's where the tan's from. It's definitely not from sitting in this office. And we just really enjoy it. We really enjoy being able to travel and do what we want. And we've done it even for years now at different stages of our financial freedom. And again, when I saw your podcast, the episodes that I listened to, I was like, oh yeah, she is doing the right thing for her audience.
I love that. What a journey. Oh my gosh. So I think I want to start at the beginning because and I think a lot of listeners are curious what the journey looked like for you to really have essentially no financial practices in place that were beneficial for you for the long term. What were those initial steps that you took in order to have this mindset that you now have?
Yeah, I love that. So yeah, started off with no financial plans, knowledge, whatever. All I knew was you make money and you spend money, right? Like you make money and you struggle because you spend it or you do something stupid with it. Or, a lot of times growing up, there was more month than there was paycheck, there was more month than there was paycheck. And so at the end of the paycheck, there was more month to go. And so that's all I saw. It's all it really happens when it comes to finances. We just mirror what we saw growing up, right? And so we have indirect experiences, whether that's with our parents, our family and friends, or even the entertainment world, right? Like I grew up in the era where like rappers were wearing their jerseys backwards with like the Band-Aid over their face and like just buying obnoxious things. I mean, again, to each their own, but I looked up to these people. Right. And so a point being is like you just see that. And then once you start to acquire money on your own, you're just mirroring that until you make a conscious decision to make a change. Right. And so I think the first thing that I did is just realize that like money's not bad. Right. And so money's actually neutral. And here's two examples that I've utilized. Right. One was I heard this quote that said money is like a tool, just like a hammer. Right. And a hammer can be either used to build a village or tear down a village. The outcome of that tool is dictated based on the human being behind it operating it, right? And then secondly, one of the most misconstrued Bible verses, right, is people walk around always saying money's the root of all evil. It's like it's not what the Bible says. They're skipping the most important word, which says the love of money is the root of all evil. And if you look at the interpretation of the Bible, what it means by the love of, it means that you're worshiping money, right? Or you're worshiping that thing. And you can only worship one thing at a time, right? And so if you're worshiping money, you leave no room for God. And so when they say the love of money is the root of all evil, that means that you worship it and it's the most important thing to you in your life, right? That's where it starts to get evil. But there's nothing wrong with money. I always say money is a beautiful tool, but a terrible God, right? And so I started there, like reconfiguring my thought processes and my paradigms around money. Like the things that I heard growing up about rich people, like rich people are evil, or like, oh, must be nice to have all that money, or all making money does is just make people evil, or whatever the bullshit that was fed to us by society or our parents growing up. right? It was ultimately just a story that they told themselves to make themselves feel more comfortable about their lack of accomplishments, particularly financially and professionally in their life, right? All people will do is just project their fears and insecurities on you. And a lot of times when we're growing up, that happens from the people around us when it comes to money and success, but particularly money. So I made the decision to realize it's just like all money is just an extension of who you really are, right? It just magnifies who you really are. And I just had a billionaire on my podcast last week by the name of Brittany Turner. She owns an island. She actually owns the island called Buck Island. It's the island right next to Epstein's Island, which is kind of weird. Nothing crazy going on there. All magical, beautiful, healing stuff. And she bought the island when she was like 29 and became a billionaire when she was 32. And she's like 36 now. And she's like, all money will do is just expose who you really are. Right? If you're a shitty person, you're just going to be shittier when you have more money, right? But if you're a good person, it's just going to magnify that good. And so that's where I started, from like the internal world. And at my company, JFF, Journey to Financial Freedom, we teach finances in two buckets. An internal world, right? The thoughts and processes, emotions, paradigms, stories, beliefs we have around money, because our external wealth is just a reflection of our internal wealth. So if we have our scarce and negative thoughts around money, what do you think our reality with money is going to be? Pretty close replication of that, right? And then after that was like, okay, great. This is awesome to think all these beautiful things about money, but I actually need to go out and act on them. I need tools to help me create plans, right? And create goals that are in accordance with who I am as a unique human. And so that's when I implemented two of just, I think, the only systems you really need as when you're trying to get your finances in order, just a budget and a balance sheet. Right. And budget, let me break some stigmas around that, because when people hear that word, they're probably going to hang up the episode right now, but stick with me. Right. Unfortunately, society has made budgets feel like handcuffs or scarcity or limiting or punishment, which is just so far from the truth. Right? If you're running a quality budget, it should empower you to live your life and spend your money. Right. It shouldn't. I'll say that again. If you're running the right budget, it should empower you to live your life and spend your money while also making financial progress at the same time. It is possible. Very, very possible to live your life, spend your money, and make financial progress at the same time. You just need the plan that shows you how to do that. And that plan is in running a proper budget, right? And then a balance sheet is just another financial document that's a lot simpler than a budget, if you will. It's just your assets versus your liabilities. Simply put, it is a fancy way of saying, what are you worth versus what you owe? Right? Like, what do you have to your name, right? And what do you owe, right? And those two systems right there will help you create a plan for you to accomplish all of your financial goals in the fastest, cheapest, most stress-free and trustworthy way as possible, right? So I started to get acquainted with the thought processes that were going to serve my goals and the tools that I needed to implement to ultimately get me there.
Okay, there's so much in that I want to touch on, and thank you for sharing all of that. I definitely do want to dive into some of these practical tools, but I think before going there, I want to talk about something that I think a lot of people probably see, hopefully less so now, but see as very woo-woo, which is the mindset and the subconscious mind behind money. This is something that I am continuing to learn about in a few different containers, because I think to be a successful business owner and entrepreneur, and I mean person in general, but for my purposes, it is so important to understand the way that the subconscious mind works when it comes to money. Can you elaborate on this a little bit?
For sure. You got till tomorrow. But let me put this precursor out there. So when I first started this business, I was as black and white as it could get. I was an ex-college athlete. I tore my ACL 4 times in college and still ended up being an All-American after the 4th time. So I had like that suck it up buttercup mentality, come from an old school Italian father who just used to like beat you all the time. And like, I know it sounds crazy, but like just like very disciplined, right? And so if 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago, if you would have said like, oh, subconscious mind, go meditate, like I would have told you to kick rocks, you weirdo, right? And that's just who I was. So I'm not coming to this conversation, right, with a strong spiritual background, with a strong subconscious background, with like a talk about your feelings all the time type of background. But I've realized over the years, it's the most important thing when it comes to rewiring or rewriting your financial reality, right? So stick with me here, right? So our reality is a direct correlation to our behaviors, right? Our behaviors come from our beliefs, and our beliefs were formed from our traumas and our experiences in life. And so when you want to get best results with something, you must address it at a belief level. Give you an example, right? Who here listening, I guess raise your hand, but I can't see anybody. Raise your hand if you've ever been on a nutrition or fitness program before where you crushed it for like 60 to 90 days and then you fell off afterwards and you're still struggling this day to get back on full blown, right? It's okay. I'm going to raise both of my hands. I do it all the time, right? And so very common. And it's nothing against those fitness and nutrition programs, but the majority of them only address things at a behavioral level. They're like, this is how you should be behaving, right? No explanation on why you've always behaved a certain way or how to change those behaviors, really. It's just like, follow this and you'll get better results. And it's very easy to do that for the first 60 to 90 days because of what we call the honeymoon period. It's new and it's exciting. But once it starts to get old and redundant, we just go back into our old ways and we fall off, right? It's because nothing from a belief level is addressed. And so we started seeing this in our own business. We've been in business for about 4 years now, thankfully, have generated millions and millions of dollars in income, all from a result of, having thousands of clients worldwide. And we've worked with a lot of people, is what I'm saying, and a lot of business owners too. And when a couple of years ago, before we really started working on the internal world, talking about the subconscious, we would put together plans for people, right? It's a big part of our service. We'll give you a detailed step-by-step action plan that like a trained monkey could follow on what you need to do to accomplish all of your financial goals in the fastest, cheapest, and most stress-free way as possible. And so simply put, we put a plan together for somebody and be like, okay, you should be saving $1,000 moving forward by the numbers. You should pay off this credit card in the next 10 months by the numbers. You should have a savings account of $20K in the next year by the numbers. And that next year, that next 10 months would go by and those things wouldn't happen. And we'd be like, excuse my language, what the fuck is going on? Like, why aren't these things happening? And so time and time again, even with some of the most successful people I've ever encountered, and it simply came down to that if we wanted to get those results, let alone long-term, we needed to start addressing the beliefs behind the behaviors that were either getting the results or not getting the results for these people, right? And so 95% of what you do, say, feel, think, whatever, every single day comes from your subconscious mind, right? It's like our autopilot, right? And then if you look at the data and the science behind the subconscious mind, the subconscious, 95% of the subconscious mind is developed, right, between ages 0 and 7, right? And then a lot of times, unless you do really, really hard work to go back and rewire that, right, that vault door is shut, right, on that subconscious mind. It's possible to go back and crack it open, but you have to do hard work to do that. Right? But point being is, so whatever you heard or experiences between ages 0 and 7, usually is what's constructed your belief system around money, right? Whether that be money being bad, rich people being evil, really your worthiness around money too as well, right? Like that worthiness, like, do you actually deserve more money, right? Can you trust yourself with more money, right? And so that plays out in our everyday behaviors with money. Right? If you think money is evil or wrong or scarce or hard to make, or you should live paycheck to paycheck, or you saw that growing up, like, it's definitely what's going to be your reality. No matter what budgeting system you get on, though it's important, this is not a license to not go out and put those systems into place. Well, no, even if you start making a tremendous amount of money, guess what? You're going to see just as little you had in the past. Right? So people think that more money is the solution, or they're going to out-earn their poor money habits, which is so far from the truth. I'm not against making more money. There's just a time and a place for it, right? Because if you don't really address the real reason why you have no money or have a scarce reality with money, right, then you're always just going to make more, spend more, make more, see just as little, make more, have the same exact problems you had in the past when you had less money coming in. And so the last example that I'll give to teach you, right, the ego, right, will do anything it can to keep you safe, keep you in your comfort zone, keep you in what your ego thinks is normal, whether it's actually normal in reality. So I'll give you an example. Imagine a child raised in a really unhealthy environment, a really unhealthy household from age 0 to 18. And you take them out of that household and you put them into a healthy one, right? Or a healthy environment. What happens in the next month, 2 months, 3 months? Right? They start creating drama. They start creating chaos because that's what their ego thinks is normal, though it's not. right? And so point being is if you were raised in a very financially unstable house, even if your parents made a lot of money, right? That's what your ego thinks is normal. Make money, spend money. Make money, get rid of it because I'm not safe with a lot of money, right? Because of what I've experienced growing up. And so I've even seen it in my own situation where though I do what I do and I teach what I teach, I still have my own struggles too as well. I'm still spending a ton of time, money, and energy into my own coaching, into my own development because, I used to be very straightforward, but they were like, I make money and spend it, right? Because I get all this money in my bank account and I'm like, oh, I'm not safe with this. I grew up broke. I grew up not thinking that this was normal. So I got to go and get it out of my bank account because I'm either not safe with it or not worthy of it, right? And then as you get more sophisticated, you just start to put pretty bows on that. Well, I'll call it an investment, right? Well, I'll get a bunch of money in my bank account and immediately I got to get rid of it. I'm like, what am I paying? What am I investing this in? What program am I signing up for? Right. And though those have a lot better benefits than going to the mall and balling out the Louis Vuitton store, it is still a sign of me just not feeling safe with excess money, right? And getting rid of it. And whether I realize that or not, it's the subconscious that's controlling that. And so I know that's a really long-winded answer, but there's time and times again, no matter if it's finances, fitness, nutrition, marriage, whatever it is, whatever your goals are, people get put on these plans that, measure and hopefully manipulate the behaviors. But when it comes to long-term results, they're never there because the long-term results that you're looking for aren't correlated or complementary to the belief system that you have around that topic. Right. So if you don't believe you deserve to be happy in a marriage, no matter how much marriage counseling that you're doing to manipulate the behaviors, you're never going to have a happy marriage. Right. And so, again, this is coming from the most black and white guy ever. I promise you, I didn't come into this business thinking that would be the solution, but I have found that you get absolute best results when you pair the systems and strategies with the understanding and the development and the growth around your internal world.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that. I think that is so important and I think it's increasingly becoming more talked about, but just not talked about enough for people to make any sort of change in their life. So I know this is a big question, but on a small scale, what are a few things that somebody listening could start to work toward in order to rewire those patterns that they have?
Sorry for the pause for everybody listening. The podcast didn't glitch. I was just trying to see what was authentic to me. A question that came to mind was your life will expand into direct proportions to the hard conversations you're willing to have with yourself, other people, and God. Right. And so these are hard conversations, right? No matter what party you have that conversation with that I just listed. Right. In a lot of ways, we're talking, we have to have this conversation, right, around rewiring our mind. It's a tough conversation because we're either going back and digging up old memories that just don't feel good to us, or we're talking about our own inadequacies. Right. And so I struggle with having conversations with my wife, right, because it's just all right, we're just going to sit down this week, see how marriage is going. And I know it's just going to be a list of my inadequacies. So let me avoid that. Right. Let me make an excuse not to have that, right? And so my point of bringing this up is because I always love to say when things start to become expectations, they're no longer problems, right? And so it's the expectation that this is going to be hard work, right? That these conversations are going to be tough, right? And so I never like to fool people and try to make this sound easy, right? Financial freedom is very hard to accomplish, right? It's simple but not easy. It's simple because it's okay. Get your mindset together, run the right systems and strategies, acquire assets that just make money automatically for you, and you're financially free. Very simple, right? But what doesn't become easy is because of the emotions that come into play, right? And so I think some place to start is just to ask yourself the question, why am I the way I am, right? Or why do I have the beliefs I have, right? Specifically frame those around money. Why do I have the beliefs I have around money? Right? Why do I have the results that I have around money? Right? Why don't I feel safe with money? Right? And do that, what we call timeline work. Again, I'll say this again from earlier. Your realities are a direct correlation to your behaviors. Your behaviors are a direct correlation to your beliefs, and your beliefs are just formed from your traumas and your experiences in life. So if you can ask yourself, what traumas and experiences did I go through that form these beliefs, then we can start making headway on improvements for the chain of command down the road. right? And so I would start there. Like, what do you truthfully believe, about money? What are actually? I'm just gonna rattle off a list of questions here, right? 5 of them. For anybody listening here, just do this automatically. Don't take more than 5 seconds to write your answers down, right? I'm gonna ask you a question, write your answer down immediately, right? And the answers to these questions will be your areas of opportunity to focus on. So don't take any time. Just write down your immediate first instinct, right? So what are your thoughts around money? Write your answer down. Confusing, bad, good, exciting, right? How do you feel about debt? Third question, right? Do you believe making money is easy? Fourth question, do you believe managing money is easy? Fifth question, if somebody gave you $1 million right now, would you trust yourself with it? Don't take any time. Answer those organically, authentically, right? The answers to those questions, they're going to show you that there's some work most likely that needs to be done, right? And start there. Start understanding why you believe the things that you do around money, right? And then ultimately, now, secondly, start researching people that use money for good, right? Because again, money is just an extension of who you really are. When people say money is the root of all evil, again, I give them that example from the beginning, but I always say money is just a piece of paper or a piece of plastic, right? Where money goes wrong is when the human being behind it decides to misuse or abuse it. Again, I'm a man of Christ, to each their own, but like I think about the Bible all the time too as well. I'm like, think about it this way, like God put alcohol on this earth. Jesus Christ drank wine. Where did alcohol go wrong when man decided to misuse and abuse it? God put sex on this earth. Where did it go wrong when human beings decide to misuse and abuse it? Right. And so money is just a tool, right? And the outcome of it has a heck of a lot more to do with the operator behind it, not the money itself. And so those are just some places to start. But there's a lot of good people out there using money for good, right? And not to say that you can't have an impact on this world without money, but it becomes a heck of a lot easier to have that impact on this world and walk out that purpose that God has for your life when you have the tool of money. Money doesn't create all happiness, but it definitely massively decreases stress and anxiety and massively increases the opportunities that you have in this world.
So interesting, and such good questions to just think about and reflect on and have available in your mind to ponder. One thing that really gets me is when not a lot of people, but I think a lot of people who are starting to build wealth for themselves or looking to start their entrepreneurial journey have the mindset of rich people are bad and terrible. And I know that comes from other places, but I think especially once you've been on an entrepreneurial journey for at least a few years, you realize, or at least I realized, that so many wealthy people are making such a big difference in the world. And of course, there are lots who are not, but the majority of people are good. And the majority of people want to help other people. There's always going to be exceptions to anything in life, this included. But I think that having more wealthy people who are enjoying a high quality of life for themselves so that they can then have that first and give back to others after is so important. And so many people I see, like just even in the news, people of saying, oh my gosh, well, the rich people in the US and Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos, and they're these terrible people. And like, yes, of course, some things that they do are not always going to be debated, let's say, but these are also people who are doing amazing, incredible things that could never be thought of. And maybe they're not the best examples, but there's so many people out there who are doing good with their money. And so for me, I think that is a big limiting belief that I see people have that I think needs to really be changed. And I think if you want to be successful as an entrepreneur, you need to have that mindset shift. Otherwise, you're not going to go anywhere.
1000% agree. And I mentioned a billionaire on my podcast last week, and she said, this world needs more good people with a lot of money, right? We really, really do. And again, money is just a tool, and it can be used for such good. And even from like a business owner standpoint, it's like, even think about this goodness that it can be used for, right? You only have so much time and energy, particularly energy. Let's talk about, right? And I know a lot of people listening to this are impact driven people, right? And we find that the business owners, because we work directly with business owners, we do financial coaching for business owners. And so we find that the business owners that have the strongest impact on their clients have something in common. And that is they have a good relationship with money and they manage it well. And why we think that correlation is important or why it's prevalent is because let's just say that you woke up today, right? And you used the majority of your mental energy to stress about finances, right? You're thinking, well, how am I going to pay this bill? How much money do I need to make next month? I got no idea what to do over here. Should I be investing here, right? If you're spending that mental real estate on unnecessary stresses and anxieties around money, guess what? You don't have it to go towards the creativity, right? And the fulfillment of services that have an impact on this world through your audience and clientele. And we have found that the majority of people's stresses and anxieties around money are unnecessary. They're caused by what we call subjectivity, right? Subjectivity is a gray area, not being insensitive to people's emotions or thoughts, but when you're like, I've got no idea how to budget my money, or I don't know if I should be spending money on this, or should I invest over here? Should I make this investment in my business? Should I be paying this card down first? Or should I buy a house next year? Or should I be renting until this date? Like, how do I actually build an emergency fund? Just making up a whole bunch of shit, right? That just is gray areas of like, I'm not sure, right? All of that causes stress and anxiety around money because the lack of clarity around money equals stress and anxiety around money, right? That's what we call subjectivity. We replace it with objectivity, black and white. Here's exactly what you should be doing, right? And sometimes maybe will not like the numbers, but at least knowing it, seeing them, having the clarity creates an empowerment, right? And so we find 95% of people's stresses and anxieties around money go away, or at least massively decrease when you replace that subjectivity with objectivity. And objectivity is just basically managing your money correctly and having a good relationship with it, right? And then from there, all of that mental real estate that used to be utilized, worrying and stressing about money unnecessarily, guess what? Gets to be reallocated towards your client experience, gets to be reallocated towards the impact that you want to have in this world, gets to be reallocated towards the ideas that you're trying to create to make you financially free. And oh yeah, by the way, you have a better relationship and more of this beautiful thing called money, right? That can ultimately be used as a ton of leverage to help you do all of those things at a much faster rate.
I love that. So much to like ponder on from this episode so far. So I want to talk about the hard, tangible, sometimes assets. So what are some ways that you recommend that your clients and others to start amassing and building wealth for themselves?
It's a great question. So I think laying the strong foundations first, right? And so let me start with the end in mind here again. So financial freedom, right, is owning an asset or assets that make you enough money each month to cover your expenses and your lifestyle, whether you choose to show up or not, right? And so what is an asset, right? Here's a very simple breakdown. An asset just is something that is money, is making you money, or can make you money. I'll give you examples of each. Something that is money, green paper bills in your wallet and or the money in your checking and savings account at the bank. That is money, right? Second is money is making you money. So the second thing is making you money, right? Think about a business, right? Like my business right now, I thankfully have been, hard at work over the years and have turned it into that financial freedom. My screen froze for a second, and have turned it into that financial freedom vehicle that we call the asset that is actually providing you that financial freedom. We call it a financial freedom vehicle. So I'm sitting here right now and we're making money while I'm talking to you, right? Or if you have money in the stock market that's invested, right? That is making you money right now, right? And then the third thing is something that can make you money, right? An easy example I like to use is, let's just say you own a car outright. You don't have a loan on it. You've paid it off and it's worth $10,000. If you went and sold that car would turn into cash in your hand, right? So an asset is something that is money, is making you money, or can make you money, right? And so starting with the end in mind of financial freedom, Right? By financial freedom is kind of like that castle you want to build. And you don't want to build a castle on sand. You want to build it on stone. You want to lay the right foundations, right? I know a lot of people that are financially free, but they skip the foundational levels, right? And they're like one big expense or one big lawsuit or one bad month in business away from not being financially free anymore, right? And so when we advise our clients is to build strong foundations first, right? And this is where your money is best spent, right? Strong foundations. There's three foundations in addition to having the right systems, strategies, and mindset around money, like we talked about already. But like, okay, now what do I actually do with my money first, right? So the first thing is just to build an emergency fund, right? It's not if, but when something is going to pop up, especially as a business owner and entrepreneur. This is nothing from like a negative, like we're talking bad things into existence. It's just statistically proven that some shit's going to happen, right? And it's up to you whether you're going to have the money for it or not, right? It's people like, I don't like the words emergency fund. It's like, sounds negative. I'm welcoming something into existence. I'm like, it's just statistically proven that something is going to happen. You're going to have a bad month. A random month bill is going to pop up. Something's going to happen with your health, especially as you increase your liabilities, if you will, which I'll talk about here in a second. But think about a savings account as an overall umbrella. You could save for just about anything. You'd save for a house, a car, a vacation, or an emergency, right? Which is what we argue is, the most important savings account to build. And so, building that emergency fund, no less than 3 months, no more than 6 months. Anything less than 3 months is a waste of money or a massive risk, Anything more than 6 months, just sitting in a basic checking or savings is a waste of money, right? And 3 or 6 months of what? And so most people always ask that. And it's not your income. It's actually your expenses, right? So if you make $10,000 a month and you have $5,000 and expenses, and you want to have 3 months of emergency fund, 3 months times $5,000 equals $15,000. Very easy example of how you can come up with that number, right? So like that money is set aside because something will happen, right? Especially if you have a business, you want to have that little bit of cushion, right, to be there to help stomach any storms that come your way. The second thing is just to learn how to manage debt. There's a massive difference between good debt and bad debt. Not all debt is bad, right? My favorite money is OPM, other people's money, right? And so good debt or bad debt is buying shit you don't need with money that you don't have with no plan on how to pay it off, right? Like going to the mall right now, balling out at the Louis Vuitton store on a credit card with a 25% interest rate that you have no idea how it works, no idea how you're going to pay that back, and no money in the bank account, and you're already struggling to pay your bills, right? That's bad debt. Right? Good debt is using somebody else's money at no cost or low cost to increase your value, wealth, and opportunities. Right? And so I've used OPM in the past to invest in my mentors. Right? One of my mentors charged me $20,000 up front. Right? And she taught me how to make $10,000 more a month. Right? So I utilized a loan. Right? Took that out, paid him the $20,000. Just had monthly payments of $500 a month going towards the loan. Right, was able to pay him immediately before I even made the first payment on the loan, right, and learned how to make $10,000 more a month for the rest of my life, paid the loan off in 2 months, and then the rest of that $10,000 more a month has just been profits ever since, right? And so just examples there, learn how to manage debt. And then third is eventually buy some real estate, right? Particularly your primary residence. Again, with people listening to this, it might not make a ton of sense, right? This one's a little bit looser than the first two, right? But eventually just buy some real estate, whether it's your primary residence, so you stop renting, right? Or whether it's a rental property that's an asset for you, because that can be an asset. You can have 10 rental properties a month, giving you $1,000 profit automatically. So 10 rental properties times 1,000 equals $10,000 a month. And now you're financially free, right? Because you own those assets that are spending you that money each month, right? And so just getting into real estate, whether that be, your primary residence, which would be the first step, or at least buying some type of rental property that maybe even the profits is paying for your rent to live somewhere else while you're traveling, right? And so start there, right? Then start getting into investing, or at least learning about how to invest in the stock market. The stock market is for the long haul, right? It is almost guaranteed money over the long haul, right? But for business owners, we have to ask ourselves, how much money should we be investing in the stock market short term? Short term, my biggest advice to you is once you get the foundations laid, or maybe even before you get the foundations laid, utilize your funds to become an equity millionaire first, right? What that means is ramp your business up, right? Because right now, if you looked at your current situation, right, and you got $500 left over each month, saving your way to $1 million, somebody do that math. It's going to take effing forever, right, to save your way to $1 million. Or we can take that money, invest it into your assets to ultimately help them grow, right? So like my business, I invested all my money, I did a little bit into the stock market for a couple of years to have that maintenance money going in for the long term. But the majority of my extra money was going into my business to get it ramped up to a 7-figure business. Because once I got it there, now the profit margins were much larger. So instead of having 500 left over each month, now I have 50K left over each month, right? Where now I can save my way to $1 million a heck of a lot faster. And so my point of saying that is honestly get to know the stock market and maybe start investing a little bit in there. Again, this is not financial advice. Go to a licensed professional first before you start investing in the stock market. But it might be your best bet to invest short term into assets like your business to get it to a cash flow level that then leaves you excess amounts of money left over to go buy other assets with, right? Becoming an equity millionaire means that you don't have $1 million cash, but you have assets that are worth millions of dollars, right? You do that first, then your profit margins get a lot larger, and then you can save your way to become a cash millionaire a lot faster than you could with your old situation. So again, I can go on for days with advice, but those are just some things that come to mind to be thinking through.
Yeah, totally. I love that. And I love that you mentioned houses and real estate in general, because I think it's such an opportunity. Living the lifestyle that I live, it's an opportunity. If you are American, it's quite easy because most Americans in the realm that we deal in and most of our American clients aren't really planning to leave the American system quite yet. Canada is another good example where interest rates are high, maybe sometimes. If you compare that to most other countries, especially once you go south of the US, it's never high. So take advantage of loans, mortgages, build equity, have some, like you said, have some good debt. And then if you want, you can geo arbitrage your lifestyle and move south of the border, have assets that are making income in Canada, in the US, and a few other countries where interest rates are a lot more favorable, and live a lower cost lifestyle. Don't do that. It's such a different game when you get to south of the US where interest rates are 20% is normal. So then you need to network, you need investors. It's a very different game. So if you're looking to get started in this and you are from a Western country, take advantage of that now. Maybe it means not leaving the system quite yet, but have some income, passive income every single month, and then build a lifestyle that you are looking to structure, whatever that may look like for you.
Yeah, I mean, that's so perfect. Let's just say you build some assets here in the United States, real estate wise, after all expenses, they're giving you $3,000 a month. I'm just making fake numbers up here. And you move south of the border, I bet you your expenses aren't 3,000 American dollars anymore. So guess what? You're financially free, right? And so now you can do what you want with your time and energy. And a lot of times when you have other assets making you financially free while you work on what I call your forever business, right? They're intermediate vehicles of real estate making you financially free for the time being to provide you the money, time, and energy to invest into your bigger vision. That's where you actually become the richest, right? And the wealthiest and have the biggest impact is when you're not worrying about money and you do have the time and energy to go into your forever business. That's usually where things start to take off.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, I mean, we could definitely keep going on, I feel like, for another hour or two. But before we close off, is there anything else that you think that's important to touch on in this conversation that we have not yet?
Shoo. I love the quote that money is the tool, freedom is the goal, right? That's I don't want to say quote, that's our company slogan, right? And it is impossible to live your dream life if you don't have your money under control, right? So if you avoid the work that needs to be done for you to address your finances, all you're really doing is just avoiding necessary work that you're going to have to come back to one day if you are serious about financial freedom, right? And so financial freedom, again, it's a very small percentage of people get to live that. And a lot of people pray for that outcome, but not many people want the input that it takes to get there. Right? 2 + 2 doesn't equal 6. You know what I mean? And so we have to do the work, right, that leads to the outcomes that we want. And like I said earlier on, when things start to become expectations, they're no longer problems, right? And the work is hard, right? But if you're on the right system, surrounded by the right people, it comes as easy as possible, right? Going back and thinking about budgeting, like if you're on the right budget system, it only should take 1 to 3 minutes a day. It shouldn't be quantum physics, right? And when you are working with people, right, just make sure they have your best interest in mind when it comes to your finances. And one thing, make sure that they understand are what we call your unique variables, right? Unique variables are what make you different, right? What's your age? Where do you live? What are your goals? What are your stresses? What do you do for a living? How much money do you make? Do you have kids? Just for a couple, just for an example, right? That all makes you a unique human being, which those unique variables need to be weighed when creating your financial strategy to get you best results. You could Google some shit and look up on YouTube and maybe even listen to this and take some general blanket advice, which could get you decent results, maybe good results. But there's a massive difference between decent financial results and optimal financial results, right? And that gap between both of those destinations is extremely costly, not even just financially. Right. So understand if you want to get best results, you need a custom strategy, and your unique variables need to be incorporated into building that custom strategy, because what works for me may not work for Nicole. What works for Nicole may not work for the next person. Right. And so if that felt important to leave y'all with.
Yeah, I totally agree. I was just on a podcast this morning on someone else's show, and he was asking me, like, where's a great place to establish your tax residency? And I was like, well, it depends on the individual. There's no one country that's best for the individual. It's where are your customers? What payment processing do you need? What lifestyle do you want to design? There's so many factors. And so it's the exact same here. And so I really appreciate you including that, because I think a lot of people can kind of just take very general information, and if it's not custom and tailored to you, it's great information, but it's not, like you said, going to get you those optimal results. So thank you for everything you've shared today. Where can people find you online?
For sure. So I'm going to give your audience a free training. It's one that I do for our exclusive community. It's called How to Make and Save More Money, because the first one's useless without the second one. And so I'll give you that link that you can put in the show notes, and completely free, just a gift for your audience. And then you can find me online at Justin_Buonomo. I'm not even trying to spell it out loud. I'm just going to confuse people. Just look at the show notes and or the title, and find me on Instagram. Shoot me a follow, shoot me a message. And then in my bio, you'll be able to find my company's Instagram too as well, which is Journey to Financial Freedom. And so our website is journeytofinancialfreedom.co. We do financial coaching for business owners. And so if anybody's interested in learning if and how we can help you, feel free to book a complimentary call with my team. That link will be either in my bio and or on the website. And we're just happy to chat with you guys there.
Awesome. Sounds good. Everything is linked below. And thank you for being here, Justin.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
You've just listened to the Work, Wealth, and Travel podcast. If anything from this episode resonated with you, I would appreciate if you share this podcast on your socials. And of course, be sure to tag me. And don't forget to leave a review on your favorite podcast platform. Thank you for joining me on this global citizen journey, and I'll see you in the next episode.